Good morning, everybody. So, following the theme of first-time homeowners or my first home, um, and also particularly looking at all owners, in fact, I'm often asked, I just want to know what I'm covered for and what I'm not covered for. That's all I want to know. I'm an owner. I don't need to know liability, this and that, and this is long and this is too short. Just tell me in a nutshell, what am I covered for and what am I not covered for? I'm an owner. I just want the basics. And when it comes to a claim, I've got a rough idea of what I can claim for, and I can ask you at the time. Okay, so that's usually what I find an owner really wants. He doesn't want the whole story. And the reason I can understand, I just want bottom line. It's a busy world. And also, I can also understand it from the broker's point of view, because I'm a broker. We are obliged to give you the full story. So we've got to find a balance. So how have I found the balance? Well, I find it by putting it out in certain formats. So I break it out into small bite pieces. So we've got booklets, we've got the sectional title insurance guide, which gives you a lot of information about the insurance, the legislation, and the background. So that's great and very specific for trustees and for interested owners, of course. And then we reference that when it comes to a claim. And then we've put out a more simple, as I've said, what am I covered for and what am I not covered for? Just the basics. And that's my home insurance sectional title, aimed at the homeowner and particularly the new homeowner. So he's just got a basic idea. Okay, so as I said in the previous video, what you need to do is to understand that this is for the buildings. Your contents is something else. Okay, you go to your own broker for your contents. The body corporate now attends to insurance. But what does that mean to you as an owner? Okay, so here's the booklet. I'm just going to show you a few things. So that's what it looks like. Um, and it's actually, I'm going to put it up next to the sectional title insurance guide. So there's the sectional title insurance guide with the lighthouse on it and my home insurance with that blue design. Okay, so, and by the way, my home insurance sectional title can be done in many formats. We actually do actually have it co-branded for certain schemes and certain managing agents. But generally, this is what it looks like, and it can be downloaded from the website, addsure.co.za, under resources. So what else does it have? Well, we explain the basics of buildings cover, but particularly what you would be looking for is what am I covered against on page 4? So there we put it in a table of what you're insured for, and there it is. That's what it looks like. And then we have some examples. So the examples are of what you are typically covered for. So fire is always at the top of the list. Believe me, when you have a fire, you want to be properly covered and you've done all of the right things. So fire, lightning, and explosion. That would be the first thing that the Act wants you covered for. The Act also says it's fire and other prescribed risks, and then the regulations set out what you need to be covered against. And then the prescribed management rules tell you a little bit about how in a little bit more detail. Okay, so fire, lightning, explosion would be point 1, wind, hail, storm, snow. Um, so any wind damage, hail damage, or storm damage needs to be covered. Burst pipes that are not as a result of wear and tear, so burst pipes. And I'm not saying what the Act says. The Act actually refers to escape of water, but what we are speaking about is what you can get cover for. Typically, your burst pipe would be covered, not your old leaking front pipe. Okay, your burst geyser, okay, also should not be covered in terms of prescribed management rule 31, but it usually is. So your geyser bursting is usually covered. Well, a burst geyser does hardly ever happens, but your old worn and torn geyser will actually normally be covered, believe it or not, contrary to everything that I say. Impact, like a vehicle hitting the gate or knocking a wall down. So vehicle impact against the building would be covered. The damage to the building would be covered, that is. Accidental damage. So in other words, you spill paint or something happens accidentally, you drop a heavy item on something in your section that damages maybe your basin or something, you would have some sort of cover. Flood, so if the river next door, as long as it's not excluded, comes through and floods, or sudden water damage, you have a flood or water damage, or huge pipe bursts, and there's a flooding, you would be covered for those damages. And damages caused by a break-in or burglar entering the property, so they break open your door, that would also be covered. Okay, so those are generally the covered things. There are a few wider pieces, more coverage. I'm not going to go into all the smaller bits and pieces, but that is the bulk of it. What am I not covered for? And that's what people are particularly interested in. I like to focus on what you are covered for, but what you aren't covered for is equally important. Okay, so what wouldn't I be covered for? Well, some examples. Water penetration over time. So there's damp, there's ingress. Every time it rains, water comes through. So ingress over time caused by failed waterproofing and the failed waterproofing itself. So if you've got a flat roof particularly, and there's waterproofing, and now it's starting to seep through because it's rainy season, you know what? Even if it happened on the first rains, the continuous ingress and failed waterproofing is ordinarily not covered by default. Some of the insurers are a little bit more generous on the resulting sudden initial damage. If you report it straight away and you get to it and you can see there's no mold and mushrooms and flaking going on. But generally speaking, if it's wear and tear related, it should not be covered. But as I said, some of the insurers we work with are a little bit generous on some of the resulting. Water damage occurring whenever it rains due to a leaking balcony, absolutely not covered, or from the flat above. You would need to, if it's happening over time, again, attend to it on your own bat. Whoever is causing it would no doubt be the person that you would look to recover the costs from. But unless it's happened suddenly as one event, last night you went to bed, it was fine, you wake up this morning, there's water everywhere, that would be an insured event. Damage to ceilings over time due to a bath trap or shower leaking, absolutely not again, very similar. Over time, not covered. Damage to pipes, the leak detection and repairs where the pipes are decayed. You know, they're rusty, they're leaking, there's pinholes or whatever the case might be. But if it's corrosion and wear and tear related, no cover, no cigar. I often hear the argument, oh, well, it's in the wall, how can I maintain it? It's not about whether you can maintain it or whether the insurance company should pay for it because you can't see it. It's wear and tear, and that's what the contract will say. The contract will say wear and tear or corrosion is excluded, whether you can see it or not. Okay. Damp is coming through is usually a period of time related. It's not something that happens suddenly. I do have some literature and video on damp that results from something that occurred suddenly. Now, that's a different story. But if it's the normal rising damp, that would not be an insured event. Cracks appearing suddenly or just appearing, unless it's caused by some, sudden event, absolutely. So if there's cracks appearing because of an earthquake, yes. Cracks appearing because of some flood, yes. But if the cracks are just appearing because of some wear and tear or slow movement, no, that wouldn't be covered. And then, of course, tiles that suddenly just burst open because they decided that the temperature and the adhesion wasn't correct anymore, and they just popped. And they call it tenting of tiles. The tiles usually do that. They make a hell of a noise, crashing sound. Sounds like a sudden event, which it is. It is a sudden event, but it's not through an event that is insured. So it's not a flood, a storm, an earthquake, just happened. And it shouldn't have happened, actually. And that's the reason why the insurance won't pay for that. Okay, seeping of water, dampness, mold because of a leaking pipe. Also, as I've explained more or less before, but just to be more specific, that wouldn't be covered. Rain damage because the windows weren't waterproof properly. So, the cause wasn't the water. The cause was actually poor maintenance, and therefore it wouldn't be covered. Defective design and defective workmanship. So if something was designed wrong and there was an event as a result of that, then there would be no claim. So, for example, if a contractor, put a gutter the wrong way around and it caused damage, they wouldn't be covered, because had it been installed correctly, it wouldn't have caused the damage. Okay, so the cause wasn't the storm, the cause was the defective design or workmanship. So you go to your contractor for that damage. Okay, so damage to any owner's contents. So even if the flood came through a window that the body corporate was meant to maintain, the body corporate's policy is not going to cover those contents. Yes, the owner might have a gripe and a liability claim against that body corporate or the other owner. That's a different story completely. But from a damages point of view, you go and claim from your contents insurer for your contents, and you claim for the buildings from the buildings insurer. Okay, so damage to vehicles not belonging to the body corporate. So in other words, an owner has parked his vehicle under a covered parking area that belongs to the body corporate. Let's say there's a storm and the parking area collapses onto the owner's car. As long as the storm caused that damage, it wasn't due to the body corporate's negligence in any way, the owner must claim from his car insurance. The fact that the carport belongs to the body corporate and fell on the car because of the storm, it's not because of the body corporate, it's because of the storm. And therefore, the owner claims from his vehicle insurance. The body corporate's insurance does not cover owners or third parties' cars. Okay, just take note of that. Damage caused by tree roots that are growing around. I have a video clip on tree roots growing, but that is not covered. Okay, tree roots growing and pushing over walls or getting into gutters and things is happens over time, is actually a maintenance issue. Okay, and it's not a sudden storm or event. Okay, so no cigar. Leaning walls and walls acting as retaining walls. Retaining walls are ordinarily excluded unless they're specifically included, but leaning walls as well. The wall starts leaning because of this and that, and not because of a storm or an event suddenly, then that would also be deemed not covered. Okay, so those are the roughly the covered and not covered items in a nutshell. It's all there in the booklet, all listed on page 4 and 5. Download the book and keep it handy. Obviously, this is just generalization. Please take note. The specific policy might differ. Obviously, I'm just using general from what Addsure uses in the marketplace. So this is extracted from the general policies that we work with. You might have a completely different policy. They might come along and want to bake you a cake. That's brilliant if you can get a policy that can bake you a cake. But this is what we work with, and it's contractual and it's the norm. Okay, so there we have it. Please don't forget to like this video, share it, and of course, subscribe. We'd love to have your subscriptions. Our subscription base is growing. Join us and be informed whenever we put out a new video clip, which is every few weeks or so. Cheers. Bye-bye.